Our fifth question this evening keeps us on domestic issues. And Teresa Collette, if you would be the first to answer this question. Our audience here this evening is very concerned that we are saddling our kids and our grandchildren with massive debt, and that the interest on that debt will be one of our largest budget items in coming years. What do you propose our federal government do about it?
There are a number of things we need to do. In fact, this year, our national deficit is the second highest since they've been keeping track. And it is a year in which Congress has failed to even pass a budget. Congresswoman McCollum sits on that committee, and yet the Budget Committee didn't even propose a budget. Imagine in your household if you had maxed out your credit cards and were living on credit and didn't think to sit down and figure out how you were going to get out of that mess. We have got to bring fiscal sanity back. We need to reinstate hard budget caps, which were in existence in the 1990s. In addition to that, I support the Pence Amendment that would limit our national debt to 20% of the GDP and require a balanced budget. Because if we balance the budget at 90% of the GDP, the riots in France are going to look awfully friendly.
Thank you. Betty McCollum, if you'd be the second to answer that question. We're saddling our kids and grandchildren with massive debt, and the interest on that debt will be one of our largest budget items in years forward. What do you propose the federal government do about it?
The federal government needs to put all options on the table. We often hear people say, well, I want to work on solving the problem with the debt, but we can't talk about tax cuts. Or I want to work on problem solving of the debt, but we can only do spending. All options need to be on the table. That's what we do when in our personal life when we're making decisions. We put all options on the table. So that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that we look at ways in which we can reduce spending. Now, one of the things in reduced spending that we quite often hear is, well, we can't talk about defense spending. Well, folks, all options need to be on the table, including some of the wasteful defense spending that is out there. For example, one of the things I voted against was developing a second needless engine that the Pentagon didn't even want. I voted against it. There are ways in which we can trim our budget. All options need to be on the table.
Thank you. And Steve Carlson, if you'd be the final candidate to answer the question. We're saddling our kids and grandchildren with massive debt, and the interest on that debt will be one of the largest budget items in years to come. What do you propose the federal government do about it?
Well, I like the idea of all options on the table. I'm not sure what all those options are because I only heard two of them. Obviously, defense spending that's wasteful, you wouldn't want to have that. What I've done, I'm appealing for Tea Party votes. I've signed the contract from America because I think it's a very workable and good document. Basically, what we need to do is to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. We need to return power and revenue back to the states. Because we can, for instance, do better education here than Washington. And I could go down the list of things we can do better here than there. So we also need to have a coherent growth strategy because we need to grow our way out of this. And that's one thing you don't hear when everything's just cuts and addition and subtraction. You need growth. Now, I would immediately appeal Obamacare because it's not going to save money, and that would reduce the debt. And I would still try to do more with the federal government in health care, but not that. And also, I would cut back the stimulus money that's unused, including the $45 million that's going to fund this train down University Avenue, which we don't need.
Thank you. Teresa Collette has indicated interest in a 30-second rebuttal.
I'm happy to take the time. I agree that, in fact, every part of the budget should be subject to consideration, including our entitlements, because defense does have some areas in which we can make some savings. But also Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security have got to be part of that. When you have 50% off the table because they are not part of the normal budgeting process, you cannot expect to balance a budget. But even more importantly, when your budget committee doesn't even propose a budget, you can't expect to balance the budget.
Thank you. Betty McCollum has indicated an interest in a 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. We do have a budget. We came in a lot less than the president did, and we made some tough choices in it. So I have voted for budgets. The budget that you keep talking about is just a piece of paper. It's totally non-binding. So, but the appropriations, that's binding. That becomes law. And what I've been voting on becomes law. We have to remember how we got ourselves in this jam. 2 tax cuts that weren't paid for and a war that wasn't paid for.
Thank you. Steve Carlson has also indicated interest in a 30-second rebuttal.
Okay, I got to talk about Medicare and Social Security. I'm very concerned. I might come into some Social Security soon, and I'm very concerned that the way they've been abusing that. And I don't want to balance the budget using Social Security. So I don't want to start talking about, we rated Medicare, as far as I can see, $500 billion to fund this Obamacare. That's one of the reasons I'm against it. And so I have to object to the idea of that we're going to start balancing budgets on the back of Medicare, Social Security.
Thank you.